Hi there, I'm Chase. I'm the guy that's usually behind the cameras, but today we're going to tie my take on one of my very favorite flies. It's a very simple fly, great for beginners. It's my take on the zebra midge. This particular style drops a lot faster, so it's good for faster water. I've caught more fish on it than probably every other fly I use combined. So let's get into it. Here are the tools and materials you'll need to tie the Double Decker Zebra Midge. Okay, first things first, make sure you get your bead on the hook before you start tying. Then we're going to wrap our thread and trim off the tag end. Next, we're going to add our first layer of lead. And what you're going to see Stephen do here is flatten out the end of it with his forceps. That's going to make it fit a little bit better on the shank, and it's going to give us a nicer profile when it's all said and done. So here he is flattening out that lead. Next, we're going to tuck that flattened piece of lead under the bead on top of the hook shank. It's harder than it looks. And now we'll tie that down to about the bend of the hook or fairly close. Trim it off with your scissors and kind of push it down on the shank there so you can get a nice profile. Get that wrapped up nice and tight. And now we're ready for our second piece of lead. So again, just like before, flatten that out with your forceps. Now we're going to stagger that slightly behind the first piece of lead. That's going to leave room for the dubbing that we're going to put on later. You'll notice it's going to go down a little bit further than the first piece of lead. Again, that's going to help us with our taper. Flatten it along the shank again and get that wrapped in there nice and good. Might have to build up your thread a little bit behind that piece of lead so the taper is nice and uniform. All right, next you're going to get your wire. Cut yourself a decent length there. Make sure you cut it with the crotch of your scissors and not with the tips because this wire will dull the tips of your scissors very, very quickly. Tuck that behind the bead or inside the bead. Wrap that wire all the way down to the end of your thread there on the bend of the hook. This is where you want to take the time to really work on the taper with your thread. Make sure it gets thicker toward the bead. Make sure you cover up all the shiny bits that might be sticking out from where you tied the wire in. Next, we're going to wrap our wire in the opposite direction that you tied the thread. Make the gaps between the wire a little bit wider as you get toward the bead. Put your last wrap very close to the bead. Tie that off. Then just helicopter the wire to break it. Right, and last but not least, we're going to take some of that superfine black dubbing. Usually less is more. Bear that in mind. And we're going to put some on our thread and wrap it around behind the bead. Give that a few good turns. Whip finish, of course. Tighten that knot. Cut your thread. And there you have it, the Double Decker Zebra Midge.